afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome to our second interactive edition of the Global Women Peace Network speaker series entitled Reflect, Reset, and Rebuild. And today we will be focusing on crisis in education or education in crisis. My name is Angelica Selly. I'm the president of Women's Federation for World Peace USA. I'll be your host today again. So this series was initiated to assist you and all of us to navigate through these challenging times that we find ourselves in, starting with, of course, COVID-19, global pandemic, and addressing issues that we all face as individuals, families, and as a community as a result of it. And little did we know last month, when we had the first edition on business in crisis, that another huge crisis would erupt upon the murder of George Floyd on May 25th, where racial unrest broke out and resulting in violence and difficulties in our homeland, in this America, and I would say in the world. No question that there's not only one crisis we're facing multiple crises. Question is, how can we overcome those crises? And also, I believe we have to realize that we have an opportunity to reflect on what we can learn from those crises as we speak. As someone said, when the nation is in trouble, educate the people, right? But what education are we talking about? And what kind of the lack thereof? Sometimes there is not enough education. Education itself is in crisis. We know that because mothers and fathers who are dealing with their children at home, having to educate them, have no idea how to educate and what to educate and where it's going to go with the schools. Will they be opening? Will they not be opening? It is really a good time to think about what is education and where does it go. I want to just quote Jon Stewart, who was the host of Comedy Central's The Daily Show for 16 years, who remarked seriously, fundamentally, we are a resilient and strong and resourceful nation. Our biggest problem as humans is ignorance, not malevolence. Ignorance is an entirely curable disease. So if we consider education in crisis and crisis as another disease that we're facing here in education, I believe there must be cures. And that's what we're here for today. We believe that there are answers, there are solutions. If we open our minds, if we are open to new input, new vision, creativity, thinking outside the box, thinking from the heart, thinking with spirituality, and open to new perspectives, we may just find a way. Therefore, we are very, very excited to have our distinguished women experts, educators with us today, who will introduce a little bit later, because they have experience, they have insights and wisdom that we need at this time, so that we be equipped to do a better job to educate our next generation, to possibly not look at another race with malice, but with gratitude, excitement, and appreciation, right? Would you not agree? Yes, ladies? So I'm very excited to have you with us today. But before I introduce you, or the first speaker, a brief word about the Global Women Peace Network. It is simply a network of organizations working together to foster peace, made of institutions, individuals, governments, and leaders in society who put their heads and resources together to find solutions. It was established as a project of Women's Federation for World Peace International, and the founders, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon and her late husband, even when they started the Women's Federation 28 years ago, they already felt a time will come where the women, the mothers, who are the first educators of humanity, of the family, will be called to make a difference for world peace. And this is what we are talking about today. We feel that women and mothers might have the answers in their hearts to give us solutions. So with that being said, I'd like to now introduce Dr. Taffer. Dr. Taffer is a global educator, a humanitarian, and the principal founder of World Connections Foundation in Arizona, where she serves as a mentor, professor, and leadership advisor to university presidents and K-26 administrators around the world. She's an online adjunct doctoral chair in education and in education and professor of psychology with Grand Canyon University. She is also the provost-elect for Acacia University International Graduate College for Educators with DEAC online accreditation. Ladies, these women they're top-notch, okay, just to make that clear. Dr. Taffer has dedicated her life teaching others to unleash the true potential for a greater purpose. Her tireless commitment toward inspiring women to embrace their unique leadership talents has won many appointments to prestigious positions in educational institutions, such as the executive board leader for Athena Valley of the Sun and the chief of curriculum design for the Athena International Academy in New York City, and the Women in Technology International Leadership Development Program, and board advisors for Dream Smart Academy in California. Dr. Susan Taffer also serves as the director for the Western Region Global Women's Peace Network in Arizona. I'm proud of that. And I'm most inspired about her spirituality, her insights, her professionalism, her looking forward vision and heart as a teacher and also a speaker and a person for the new age, I would say. Welcome, Dr. Susan Taffer. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Angelica. It's such a privilege to be here with you and Dr. Pierce both. It's a real honor. First of all, those were a lot of words to describe me, but I'd really like to tell you what I do daily in order for the audience to really understand my perspective from a global position. I work with superintendents, principals of schools, educators that want to up-level in their career around the world. That's Korea, Egypt, we teach in Japan, China, Italy. Every country virtually is connected with an online division of how to become better educators. And with that, these educators are also able to adapt real quickly to some of the issues that we're facing locally with our K through 12 systems. First of all, let's just reflect on what the problem is. And I want to assure everyone here in the audience that all the mothers, the fathers, the grandparents, and teachers all over the world in nearly every country are having the same issues and concerns that we are all having here in America and in Arizona and across the states. The burden is on us all. So what is happening? It's an intersection, as Angelica said, of two very compounding yet very different types of crises. There's the pandemic, and then there's the economic fallout. And of course, education is one of those pivotal points where the breakdown becomes very visible, both in our social aspects as well as in the family. You know, how do we manage? How do we suddenly become career-minded individuals, breadwinners, family leaders, and now be the educator for our children as well when we're not prepared? And that fallout then, of course, eventually translates to some disproportionate consequences for women and minority groups. And yet it offers us the opportunity for this systemic recovery from racism and the social inequities that, let's face it, they exist in our culture, in the American culture, and in other parts of the world as well. But it flattens the hierarchy. And education is one of those arenas where the major platform everyone can get upon is we want our children to be educated. We expect them to be educated. We expect our young adults to be educated so they have a future. I want to quote Madeleine Albright now because she spoke to us last week and she explained it very beautifully, where the breakdown of the social contract is under major stress because the relationship of education systems to provide for our children is seriously in distress. And the educational leaders are struggling to make decisions. How do they anticipate what's the next term going to look like? How do they assess funding opportunities to ensure that the environment is physically safe for the kids that come back? It's a lot of questions. And everyone is talking about the new norm. So what is that? What does it look like? In the field of education, educators around the world are being asked to rethink, how do we teach? What does learning look like? There's millions of students that are wondering, are we going to go back in the fall? And what does that fall term look like? Well, what we do know is that education, even though it's the first platform that people stand on, it's oftentimes the first to be budget cut, sometimes even eliminated from large budget allocations. So for some of us, the issue is access, and that's the greatest concern. How do we access through technology, educational platforms, our teachers in the school that maybe are teaching from their office? And truly that can be resolved much more readily with funding. So that's a key issue. We must provide funding. And how does that happen? It happens by getting involved in legislature and making sure those funding trails do happen for the education arena. In other arenas, however, access isn't really the major problem. And it's not technology that's the problem, but it's a workforce problem. Because many of our educators are untrained and haven't had the experience to teach online in any blended learning models, or they're having to recreate their curriculum and try to deliver to remote locations. And it's just not what they've been trained to do. So they've had to really up level fast and quickly. And so the children's education and the adult education, how does that look? And how does it look for the economic future of the family and the breadwinners? You know, how do we manage everything? There's a lot of balls in the air. Well, across the country, there's a lot of things cropping up that you may not be aware of. I know Austin, Texas has created learning labs in malls where a huge, I think it was a penny store left. And so they turned it into a learning lab where young people can come in and learn. Now, of course, the little ones are excluded from that probably because of access, but what a great use of capital buildings. Audio conferencing, teaching centers are created around the world. And that can really open up an opportunity for intercultural learning that can happen every day. So it's a new way of understanding how children learn and how we can engage them in opening doors to understanding what it looks like across the world. We also have a better understanding of what it's like in our rural communities. And that's the K through 12 system. What does it look like for the adults? Many of the adults are really up-leveling their skills in professional learning communities, taking on new opportunities. You know, when the economy is low and it falters, the attendance for adult education rises because they're changing careers, they're changing and adding to their skill set. And they're not necessarily seeking degrees, but they're engaging in learning in multiple ways from other professionals and learning how to enhance what it is they're doing in their profession or to create a new avenue for a new profession. Now, it all sounds pretty simple, but it's happening really fast and really quickly. And getting on board with that, not only for learning how to adapt to the use of technology for our kids, but also to use it for our own growth, personal and professional. And that doesn't, again, mean that we're necessarily trying to get a bigger degree or more certifications on our plate. It's the connection and learning from others. And when you share commonalities of struggle, then you come up with opportunities for solutions. So what is the purpose of all of this? What does the reset button look like? So again, there's not only the breakdown in the educational system, there's also the breakdown in the democratic system of government and health for here and us in the United States. And in different countries and different cultures, it looks differently, but there's still the breakdown. You know, do we believe in our government? Do we believe in our health systems? So as a member of the Global Women's Peace Network, I'm privileged to engage with women who are actively seeking to step up into leadership roles in all levels, not only in their family, but in the public arenas. And they're becoming responsible. And they're working side by side with men, women, young people, because it takes us all cultures working together. We are already one world. Believe it or not, we have one planet, and every day we see that is reflected in what's happening with the virus. It's worldwide, we're one world. And since we're already one world, let's step up and share the outcome by helping to be part of the solution. For those who can and who have the heart and the calling to lead through love, as Mother Moon has taught through her own life, through the logic of love, let us as women take the helm together. As Laura Listwood said, now she's the international lawyer and founder of the Council of Women Leaders around the world for global leadership and diversity. She says there is a balance between cooperation and collaboration and command and control. And we as women sometimes need to get our mind around that potential, because here's a reality: the countries led by women who have control over the virus. There's 8 that I can think of: New Zealand, Taiwan, Norway, Iceland, Finland, Germany, Denmark, and the Republic of Palau, who I understand has 0 cases of the virus. So these are countries led by women, and they've stepped up. They have connected, they have managed. And what is it about that? It's not that men aren't belonging to that organizational development. They're every bit a part of it. But there's certain things that women bring to the table. First of all, we know how to lead in a crisis. Not that, we're the only ones, but just imagine birthing a child physically or waiting in anticipation for one for adoption. We know that through the pain of delivery or the waiting comes this beautiful gift. We've expected it, and we know that the whole experience of it will challenge us in a way that we cannot imagine. In addition, we have peripheral vision. As women, we can see what might be coming down the pike, as they say. There's a sensibility of potential, of that waiting, that understanding, of that connecting. And just as a segue into how we rebuild and what that potential can look like. World Connections Foundation, it has a mission for intercultural education, and that's K through 26. And education is healing, and healing is education is the tagline of World Connections Foundation. And let me share with you that education can mean everything for some young people. If it were not for education, I would have been a statistic. And I'm sure there are many people impassioned as I am about education that have that same perspective, that there's so much potential in every young person that comes to the table and wants to learn. And the job of an educator is to open those doors. Education is about discovery. And our jobs is to help as teachers, educators, parents, mothers, fathers, grandparents, is to open those doorways of understanding for the young people that come to us in technology, at the school, at the retail shop. We're models, we're role models. We're also responsible for setting a path for the new generations to come. And this is an opportunity. And we're not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but education is the key. It's the doorway. And I think that everyone needs to become involved. And I know that my colleague, Dr. Pierce, has some wonderful perspectives on how parents and families can partner with what that rebuilding process looks like. And so I'd like to now offer an opportunity for Dr. Pierce to join us. And thank you, Angelica, for the time to speak today. And I look forward to some question and answers.
Okay, wonderful, Dr. Taffa. So many points you made. It's truly about change. You talked about the women being the key, also unlocking a new type of education. That's what I'm hearing between the lines. And also the situation of having to learn and adapt to the situation, that we are at hand now, digital education and all that. It reminds me of Who Moved My Cheese. If we hold on to the old ways, we're not going to go forward, right? And I do apologize that I neglected to mention your title. The title of your talk was, and you covered it very well, A Global Perspective, the problems, talked about that, the purpose, yes, and the potential. And that is a great segue to our second speaker, Dr. Tina Pierce. Dr. Tina Pierce serves as a program manager of the John Glenn College of Public Affairs Professional Development Program at The Ohio State University, OSU. Her service in higher education spans 2 decades and includes teaching, advising, and research experience. An experienced educator and interdisciplinary scholar. She taught at OSU in the John Glenn College of Public Affairs and Political Science Department, Denison University in the Center of Black Studies, Department of Political Science, and Department of Women's Studies. And this is my favorite here. Dedicated to transformative change in communities, in 2011, she established WORTH, W-O-R-T-H, stands for Working Through Obstacles, Reaching True Heights, an education consulting company that provides evidence-based trainings and programs to cultivate leadership and increasing civic engagement. And do we need new type of leadership. She is a graduate of OSU, earning a Doctor of Philosophy in Political Science with a graduate interdisciplinary specialization in college and university teaching, a Master of Arts in Political Science, a Bachelor of Arts in Social and Behavioral Science with distinction in Political Science, and a Bachelor of Arts in Humanities with distinction in African American and African Studies. A lifelong resident of Columbus, she attended Columbus City Schools, graduating from Beechcroft High School. Dr. Pierce and her husband, Andrew Pierce Sr., have 4 children, Andrew II, Malcolm, Catherine, Michelle. To me, she's a woman of the heart with deep insights, wisdom, a coach, a mother figure, yes, a teacher, and a powerful speaker. And she will be speaking to us on education in crisis, an opportunity for partnerships with parents. The floor is yours, Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much, Angelica. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and Dr. Taffeter for setting the stage on this very critical and important conversation that we need to have, revolving around, yes, a crisis in education, but a disruption that is going to lead to tremendous opportunity. If we think about education and the role that it has played in helping to shape cultural norms and helping to transmit kind of these myths, these ideas that our culture, that our civil society is based upon, this time in which we are living, where you do have COVID-19 changing what classrooms will look like, what content will be taught to our students, how their knowledge will be measured. Where you live in a time where you have everyone, not just Black and white people, but all people coming together to really question, how do we value humanity? It's a time where, again, we have the opportunity to change education, to invite, right, this discourse around what is humanity, to invite an opportunity to interrogate history and whose story is taught in our schools. So we are, while it is a crisis, in an opportunity period for education. And so for today, my remarks will focus on the opportunity of partnership. So first and foremost, we want to begin centering the fact that parents are vital in the education process. Far too often, we have come with the mindset of, as an educator, send me your children, send them to my school, send them to my institution. I will teach them everything they need to know to be productive and engaged citizens in society. But what we are beginning to see now, right? And I think there's been evidence all up until this point, is that we need to partner alongside parents in meaningful ways. And one of the first ways that we need to do that is to ground our acknowledgement, our education and teaching in the fact that parents have a value system. We have a value system that is grounded in a universal creator that teaches us about humanity, that teaches us to love one another, that teaches us to respect one another, that acknowledges the fact that the mother is the first teacher of the child and the critical and important role that the mother plays in terms of educating the child to even be ready to enter into the classroom. So as educators, as schools, as institutions, we need to recognize that there is a value system that's grounded in spirituality. So that spirituality is guiding how people view justice, how people view humanity, how people view working together. And by us disconnecting that in the past, we disconnected children from their communities, from their families, from their parents, from their God, from our universal creator. So again, we're at a time where we need to recognize that and do everything that we can foster for a true meaningful partnership with parents. So how do you begin to do that? Well, first, we just literally have to acknowledge that parents are the first teachers. Parents influence their children's attitudes about learning and the support that they need at home. Parents are the vital link between home and school. And as we think about what many of our classrooms will look like with COVID-19, parents are going to have to play a key role in educating students at home. Now, before, I like to joke around with my children, we do a lot of cooking. And that's one way that I educate my children. You're going to know how to cook outside of a microwave when you leave this house. But when COVID-19 came, that kind of transformed, right? And mom had to go back to geometry, which was something I had not done since I was a freshman in high school. And I had to go back to learning how to diagram sentences, right? And so, you know, parents now have to really step in and be the teacher and start teaching subjects and areas that they have not done before. So in that role, we need educators to acknowledge that parents do have a level of expertise, a level of knowledge that they can share with their students. Now, some people may say, you know, well, how is it that you can say parents have a level of expertise if they're teaching these subjects they might not be familiar with? A parent knows their child. A parent will know when you've pushed them a little too far. A parent will know when they need to switch up a particular approach to teach a subject. A parent will know when I need to call in help and reinforcement. So we need our educators to understand that you are going to have to really partner and communicate with our families, not just during this COVID-19 time, but even afterwards, right? And so an important thing for our educators to just understand and acknowledge throughout this process is culture. And culture is really defined as the integrated pattern of human behavior that includes thoughts, communication style, actions, customs, beliefs, and values. Teachers, schools, principals, educators, we need to know our parents. We need to know their values. We need to connect to those values to be able to ensure that our students are learning through this COVID-19 situation and beyond. Now, how do you begin to do that? There's various steps that you can take to develop a positive partnership with parents if you're an educator, if you're a school. First thing, you want to create a positive school climate. As we think about even in my own district, where I know a number of children that are going to school from pre-K on through 12, the districts are giving out electronics. Here's your, you get a Chromebook, you get a Chromebook, you get a Chromebook, right? But use those Chromebooks to have meetings with families. And those meetings can be grade level based, those meetings can be subject based, but don't just use that Chromebook to connect with just the child and the subject. Use that technology to invite the entire family to come in to, again, those school-based meetings, those class-based meetings, those subject-based meetings. Make sure you're treating everyone with respect as you start to develop this culture of over communication, because we want to be in touch as much as possible. You're going to be engaging the family in the learning process. And so that's going to be key and critical during this time, that we engage the full family in the learning process. We also want to be mindful that when we're sharing these technologies, that we're very aware of the concerns that can come with technology. We need to let parents know there's certain blockers you need to put on your computers. There's certain time limits that you need to put on for your students to be using this technology. Again, as an educator and as school systems, we need to recognize that we are now putting a technology into a family. And we need to understand how that technology may disrupt the values of that family, right? So if a family has a normal time of, we're going to sit down and eat dinner at 6 o'clock, but you have the instructor saying you have class at 6 o'clock and you have to turn on this computer, you're disrupting the family value, that family time to come together. So again, we want to be mindful of those things. So you want to create the partnership by, again, developing a positive school climate and culture that recognizes family values. Next, you want to make sure that the parent and the teacher are a team. Educators, take time to talk with parents, but also listen to parents. Listen to them carefully. So again, there's going to be some areas where parents are not the experts in the subject matter, but parents will be the expert in terms of, here's how I see my child struggling with this material. Here's some of the questions that my child is asking over and over again. Here's some of the behaviors I'm starting to see my child exhibit. And those behaviors might be related to this new technology. It might be related to the pandemic that we're dealing with. It might be related to, again, what we're seeing as a world related to humanity. This COVID-19 situation has really shined a spotlight on some of the inequalities that we have in neighborhoods, that we have between countries. And our students recognize that. Our children see it. They're watching the news when we're watching the news. And so again, as parents and teachers come together as a team, teachers recognize that parents, again, are experts when it comes to their children. Listen to them very carefully and allow parents to express their opinions and give suggestions. Those opinions and suggestions may help other students in your classes. Now, another thing we're going to have to be really key and mindful about is our parent-teacher meetings. When we first responded to COVID-19, no matter where you were, a rural district, an urban district, a public school, a private school, the focus was on, we need to teach children how to learn. Teach children how to learn. You get a Chromebook, you get a Chromebook. Everybody, we're going online. We're doing this blended learning. We did not have due diligence to have meetings with parents, to say, parents, here's how we need to partner with you. Here's how we need to structure a school day now. At the same time that you're trying to structure your work, what are some things that we can do to ensure that parents are able to get their work done and that children are able to get their work done? There needs to be communication for that to happen. So there has to be regular and continued parent-teacher meetings. And all of these cannot just be conferences around how the student is performing academically, but it also just needs to be some time management. Tell me a little bit about your family. Tell me a little bit about your culture. How did that lesson align with your value systems, with your belief systems, right? Because now we're going to get to a point where parents are going to be helping their children a lot more with schoolwork. They're going to be looking over the books that their children are reading, over the curriculum. And there's going to be some interrogation of not just the history, but also the economics, right? That we're going to be teaching our kids. Also, why are we doing matrix math versus the way that I learned long division, right? So there's going to be a lot more questions that parents are going to have about the curriculum. And so it will have to be on the part of the educators and the teachers to, again, meet regularly and share information with the parents, share information in a form, again, at which you're receiving the feedback from the parents. And then last but not least, I also want to share some resources with those that have joined us today. When we talk about creating a partnership with parents, there's several resources that you might want to check out. The first one is Home to School Connections, Resource Roundup by Sarah Lowenstein. It's written in 2015. The next one is Sharing Data to Create Stronger Parent Partnerships. That's by Editopia staff. And then there's another one, The Beginner's Guide to Connecting Home and School. There's also 8 tips for reaching out to parents. And then there's a 5-minute film festival in which you have the parent-teacher partnerships. by Amy Aaron Bravo. And that is from 2013 as well. So again, in summary, I think while we are at a critical time with education, it's a time at which we have a variety of opportunities. First and foremost, central to the opportunity that we have is partnering with parents in a meaningful way to ensure that our children are not just learning, but that they are becoming human beings that care about humanity, that are ready and equipped to make our world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. What an awesome presentation in only 10 minutes, and Dr. Taffer as well. I want to give you a round of applause for covering tremendous topic in 20 minutes. That alone deserves tons of money for the advice. Isn't it amazing to just come up with something simple like parents are important, right? As a solution for the incredible crisis we are facing. And having been a teacher myself, I appreciate there was always a disconnect between parents and teachers. That is a huge gap that needs to be filled, for sure. So we are all challenged to rise up to new learning, all of us, adults and children alike. So thank you for the many tools that you've given us here along with your presentation. We'll make sure that you receive it, ladies and gentlemen out there. You will receive all the resources. But let us go and have some questions now. There's so many came in. It is, first of all, a lot of kudos to both of you for your presentations. Well, let's see. I don't know where to start here. Dr. Pierce, what are some questions you recommend parents to ask schools as we are searching for a place for our kids so we can make sure their values are in line with ours? Good question.
That is an excellent question. First and foremost, some of the questions that you want to ask, you want to know what the teaching experience is for the teachers that are in the school. So you want to see what their background is, what their educational level is. You want to know the particular certifications that they have. So you may ask, how many of your teachers are certified? How many of your teachers have received master credentialing? I also think it's important too that we begin to ask questions around social emotional learning and professional development, as a lot of our students have been not around their friends as often. We are seeing that our students are really missing that connection with their peers. And so you want to ensure that teachers are mindful of that when the school year starts, and that they're providing opportunities for your student to get with other students, even if it is over technology, to have conversations. So I would also ask a question around how many of your teachers have been trained or have received professional development around social emotional learning.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Do you have any comments on that too, Dr. Taffer?
Well, I'm in full agreement with that, with Dr. Pierce. And, as educators, I think I was born an educator. It just came natural, but there's always an opportunity to learn and teach. So as you said, Dr. Pierce, in the kitchen, suddenly you were doing geometry. If we look at some of the cultures that do weaving, women were the first teachers of math and how to weave. And we go back and we look at that and they go, well, of course, you need to understand geometry and all those other things. So we're teaching while we're doing, right? And the opportunity for parents to engage with their children. There are just so many times you can engage in a teaching moment. And we all know that works. And when you add that to the communication with the educator in the classroom, then that partnership becomes natural. So not only are you teaching and taking some of the burden off of the academic components when you're the parent engaged, but then too, as you said, Dr. Pierce, the educator can help instill some of those social communication skills with the children that they maybe don't have time now in the classrooms in the past, because the classes are smaller. One great benefit of the new pandemic issue is smaller classrooms, more one-on-one. And you can actually do that through technology. It takes a certain set of skills, but not to disregard the exposure to one-on-one physically, but it can be done through technology. So
wonderful. Thank you so much. Seems to me the classroom is just now expanding beyond the walls as well, right? Everything is becoming a classroom. Another question here. How to support adult students who are ESL students in this crisis? Who would like to answer that? Dr. one of the doctors? You're both doctors. Help us out here.
I'm happy.
Maybe Dr. Teffer.
Yeah. We actually have numerous professional development courses at ESL or ELL, English language learners. The English language is one language that everybody wants to know and understand. And so it doesn't cost anything to engage in those kinds of communities where English is taught, English is understood, and the other individuals, whether they're speaking Japanese and don't know English, which is rare, but most other countries do actually teach the English language very early. So one way is to just find those ELL free access. I know Acacia University provides free access for resources for parents who are now at home and for teaching educators. We actually did seminars to help educators out free for the first 2 months of the pandemic. We had people from all over the world, like, how do I teach online? I'm used to having kids come to my classroom. So there's so many resources out there. I wouldn't even begin to share with you verbally, but we can provide them for you. And that includes ESL and ELL.
Thanks for explaining what it stands for, by the way. I'm sure not everyone knows.
Okay.
English language, right?
Right.
Is another question. Can we find a way to help parents in the community in practical ways in dealing with this? Of course, already some suggestions were made by Dr. Pierce. Any other additional practical ways that we can help others in the community?
So one of the things that, at least in our district, in our Columbus City School District, I also serve as a Board of Education member. We have been very intentional about creating partnerships. So we are partnering with our faith-based institutions. We know that outside of church services or worship services, that those buildings provide additional spacing. And so we're being very intentional to see where we can set up computer labs, where you might have a blended learning model where the student may be in the school for, say, 2 or 3 days during the week. Well, those other days, then the church becomes the space where that child can then go to and get additional resources and tutoring and help. We also have been very intentional with our partners, and we're doing some really inventive things, like working with our local transportation, CODA. CODA provides our public transportation system for the city, but a lot of our buses are equipped with Wi-Fi. So what we're also doing is taking those buses into neighborhoods where we have a number of families that don't have internet connection. But when we pull that bus into the neighborhood, when we pull that bus onto the street, they can tap into that Wi-Fi source that the bus has. So the one of the best things that we can do practically is, if you are a parent and you are connected to a nonprofit, to a church, to a small business that wants to give back and help during this time, bring them to the table with your school district, to really optimize how you can use those resources, whether it's a building, whether it's high-speed internet access. In some instance, children and parents are going to need breaks from one another. They're going to need opportunities to be around other moms, to be around other children. And the best place to get that, of course, is with our spiritual families. So we need to be grounded in opportunities with people who have the same belief system as we do. So again, any ways in which we can connect people with those resources, we should do that.
Thank you so much. What a great extension of a support system, right, that we do have at our disposal, but we have to make effort to get it. It's unfortunately getting time to wind down our session. There's so many more questions, and I'm very sorry that I cannot ask every question here. But maybe Dr. Taffer, you could, in your closing statement, address a little bit that question as well, if you like. But this is the time where we have to ask you to kind of make a closing statement.
Thank you so much. It's again been a real privilege, and I echo everything Dr. Pierce offered as far as engaging the community and the support of faith-based organizations and those safe spaces for our kids to actually go and collaborate in their learning. And just another practical piece of advice is, while there are some concerns of what technology brings, the important thing is not to be afraid of it. It's there, and understand it for your children. So you can be ahead of their exposure and understand the limits that you need to put on it for them. And not to be afraid of the concept of games that allow learning. There's actually some research, some of my doctoral students are doing research on how to implement gaming strategies in the models of education and learning through curriculum development. And it's new, it's innovative, but there are some opportunities to let your kids enjoy what they love to do anyway. It's play games on the computer, as long as they're learning. And, you know, if you understand it, take the time to learn and understand it. It will take time, but it's worth it in the end. And so just to wrap up is, again, we're all in it together. Know where you need to learn and know where you need to command and control. Collaboration, cooperation is good. Command and control is also necessary at times. So empower yourself and stay close to your own faith and your own God and your own value system. It's ever so important right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taffer. Very well said. Now, Dr. Pierce, your closing statement.
So I echo everything that Dr. Taffeta just shared. The one thing that I will add is, parents, you are important. The value that you bring, the lessons that you bring, the teachings that you share with not just your children, but the children around your children are important. You are helping to educate the next generation. And if no one has told you that, do know that you are important and you matter in the educational process. This year and the years to come, command that. Stand firmly in your role to educate our future generations.
Thank you. Bravo. Thank you so much, both of you, who shed so much light, new insight into this topic. And I think we're enriched today. And not to worry, we will make your information available for those of the participants who have more questions, right? And we will supply you with all the resources that I mentioned here today. So in closing, I'd like to invite you all to become a global friend. And just to let you know what that is, we'll show you a very brief 1.5 minutes video. Global Friends. Thank you. Isn't it the village that raises the child? Could you feel that watching the video of these beautiful women, mothers from around the world, putting their hearts and their wisdom together? I think that is the hope we have, that we come together as a village, a huge global village, raising all of our children. So wfwp.us, that's where you get the information. And now we have a special surprise for you, because our founder, Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, just released her memoirs recently, last month, hot off the press in English, and it's available on Amazon. It is truly, it's called The Mother of Peace, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. She truly is an educator herself, a mentor, a woman leader, an amazing human being that has made so much difference in the world, bring about peace globally. And that is her story that is in that book, her story, her childhood, her marriage with Father Moon, and many, many stories that shed light. Oh, here it is, the book right there. It's a great read. It's almost poetic. It is insightful and uplifting and transformational. Having said that, we want to give you a gift. Those of you who are participated with us today, we will make a little competition right now. As a gift of appreciation for those, we will give away 3 free copies of those memoirs. For the first 3 people who type hashtag Mother of Peace in the comment section below. Ready, set, go right now. And we will get in touch with you once we have your name, and we'll send you the copy. So congratulations for the first 3. I don't have the names. If you have the names, you can put them in the chat box. But I'm very, very happy that she is really the hope of many of the women leaders at this time. Women leaders were already mentioned as those who find different solutions. And what is unique about Mother Moon is the connection with her divine creator. She's absolutely in tune and in touch with that heart and spirit of the divine creator that has a longing to bring all of God's children together, if you will. So without further ado, we are very, very appreciating our speakers one more time. A round of applause to Dr. Taffer and Dr. Pierce. You really enriched us greatly. I feel empowered myself. I've been a teacher also, and we'll never stop learning, right? It's a lifetime job. And we can learn from each other. We can be so rich. And so with that being said, we are now closing this session. However, we are looking forward to the next one, which will most likely occur in August, the middle of end of August, where we address the issue of crisis in our environment. And when we talk about the environment, we specifically talk about the emotional toxic environment that we find ourselves in. We find the suicide rate went up, the domestic violence and so forth. That is another huge crisis we face as a result of COVID and our racial tensions and the crisis of education. So we want to shed light on that next time, and we invite you back, of course. In the meantime, keep the conversation going. Take this material, see it again, share it with others, and really start creating a new trend, because that's what it takes. Education starts in the mind, in the exchange of ideas and multiplication. Put a buzz out there, a new buzz for a new world, okay? A world of peace and love. Everyone wants that. Well, let's do it together. Let's really put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and our action behind what we believe in. And that being said, thank you very much. Have a wonderful month, and see you soon. Thank you.